Solo, a Star Wars story, releases this weekend. I know a ton of the subscribers here on the channel are going to check it out. And so in this video, I want to talk about some things to look out for in the movie, some things I'm personally excited to see, and then we're going to go over what we might learn about Kylo Ren by digging into the past of his father. What is up, YouTube? It's Josh. This is the Den of Nerds. If you love them Star Wars, subscribe to this channel. We cover all kinds of stuff when it comes to Star Wars. Quickly, I want to shout out the Patreon supporters. Last night, we did our first live stream with a bunch of the Patreon people. It was a ton of fun. The conversation went to all different areas, and we got to know each other a lot better. It was super cool, and I seriously appreciate anybody that's willing to give any amount of their hard-earned dollars to help support the channel. We're going to be doing another live stream early next week, so if you want to jump in on that and help support the channel, if you got a little extra loot lying around, go check out the Patreon page, which I will link in the description below. All right, so let's get into this. I obviously want to talk about Kylo Ren, what we might learn about that character by looking at his father's past, and I want to talk about what we might learn about the Reylo connection and basically how Ben Solo views love based upon how his father does. We're going to get into all of that at the end of the video, but first, I want to talk about, in general, what to expect from Solo, a Star Wars story. So this is an interesting time period. This film is said to take place about 5 years before A New Hope, and there's a ton of different things that come along with that time period. One of the things that I'm personally going to be looking for, just kind of as like a canon junkie, is how people in the universe at this time are viewing the Empire. If you've been following along with the comic books and with just a lot of the canon, you know that the Empire under Palpatine went through a lot of different phases. At the beginning, it was said to be sort of a lot like the Republic, but just with this kind of authoritarian control, which was really necessary. Slowly, as more and more power was given to the Emperor and the Empire in general, and as more and more people were disenfranchised by that power, the views towards the Empire started to shift. And so about 5 years out from A New Hope is relatively around the same time that the Rebels TV show starts. And so for me as a big fan, I'm going to be looking at how different characters, whether they're just common people or people of a lot of power and authority, I want to know how these characters are viewing the Empire and the state of the galaxy. I'm also really curious how people in the Outer Rim are viewing the core worlds. Now, this split between the core worlds and the Outer Rim has almost been a constant in the galaxy for as far back as canon goes. So even under the Republic, there was a lot of differences and conflict between people in the Outer Rim and in the core worlds. I think that this is sort of an allegory for how the West is viewed, kind of juxtaposed against developing countries and things like that. So essentially you have this hub of power and control, which is benefiting from almost any government that's ever been there. And then you have people on the outside that are almost always disenfranchised, no matter what form of government is currently ruling the galaxy. So I'll be really interested to see if that's something that's brought up. Is it brought up by people that are using that to their advantage? Is it brought up by people that are really pissed about it and want to change it? It's just going to really help to inform that conflict and what was going on 5 years out of A New Hope. Another thing that I am really interested in is seeing how people within the Empire are viewing the Empire itself. I mean, we know that Han Solo has some ties to the Empire. He has said in the trailer that he was kicked out of the Flight Academy for having a mind of his own. Now, a lot of us think this will have something to do with the Wookiees, perhaps liberating Chewbacca's people in some way, which of course is partially what happens in the Legends continuity. So we'll see how that all goes down. But beyond even Han Solo himself, I'm going to be interested to see how people within the Empire are viewing the Empire itself. I mean, this thing is super corrupt. And if you've read Lost Stars or if you've read any of these really cool Star Wars books, a very interesting aspect of characters within the Empire are portions of those books where the characters are forced to question the power and the motivations of the Empire. This might be a time period where we are seeing a lot of people defect, where you are hearing rumblings of rebellion. So I'm really curious. I want to see how different Imperial characters are viewing the Empire itself. It's just, once again, it's going to help to fill out this huge tapestry that is Star Wars. Of course, we have to talk about the Force, and it's going to be interesting to see how the galaxy at this time is viewing the Force. Now, at this time, Darth Vader has essentially wiped out the majority of the Jedi from the galaxy, including different Jedi that were hiding, trying to start their own Jedi academies and different things like that. We know this from the current Darth Vader comic book that is running, and man, it's really cool just watching him and the Inquisitori go out there and wipe out the Jedi. Also, hey, we might see Inquisitori, which could be really cool, because this was right about the time when their ranks are being thinned out by the rebels, Kanan Jarrus and different people like that. So who knows, man? We could see some Inquisitors. We could definitely see some of that kind of stuff tied into canon. Speaking of ties into canon, I'm hearing from a lot of different people that this is one of the things that the Han Solo movie succeeds at. A lot of people have had criticisms of Lucasfilm, especially when it comes to the films, and the film's ability to tie into different pieces of canon that you would consider ancillary material. I mean, I'm hoping we see familiar settings that we've seen maybe in novels or in comic books. I'm hoping that there's references to different things that happen, perhaps on Rebels or even way back in the Clone Wars. And there could be, of course, cameos. And I don't want to get spoilery at all, but I have heard some rumors that are absolutely incredible. So if we see some of those characters, it's going to be very awesome. But you're definitely going to want to be on the lookout for references and deep cuts to other parts of canon and legends. Essentially, that circle that you'll form when you get out of the film with all of your friends, man, everybody's going to be looking at the most hardcore Star Wars fans for explanations of different things in the film. It's your moment to shine as a big Star Wars fan and a nerd, so live it up. Now let's talk about Han Solo himself. I mean, obviously we're going to see a bunch of stuff about the past and the history of Han Solo. We're going to see iconic things from canon, including how he gets the DL-44, how he wins the Falcon, how the Falcon does the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs, and we're going to see the deeper meaning of the Golden Dice. Now, the Golden Dice brings me into more of this Ben Solo, lineage thing here. I'm really interested in looking at the past of Han Solo and trying to see what qualities that Han possessed as a young man are also possessed by his future son. Now, we know that the dice have some kind of a significance for the Kira character and the Han Solo character. These two characters did grow up on Corellia together. They have a special bond, and in the film, when they are reconnected, there does appear to be some kind of a romantic connection between them. The dice are seen on a Kira toy for the Han Solo film, making us believe that the dice might tie into the relationship between Kira and Han. Now, a big part of this whole thing is going to be the character development of our favorite smuggler. He seems to be, just like most young people, looking for his place in the world. The overall character that Han is the good-hearted person that projects a lot of rugged strength. So it's almost like he's a scoundrel with a heart of gold. I mean, that's kind of the archetype here. And I think Ben certainly gets that from his father. I mean, when you look at the Ben Solo character, he has this projection of all this strength, of all this dark side. And even though we know he's a well of emotions and an unstable fissure within the Force, at the end of the day, there is still light within him. He did not kill his mother. He has feelings for Rey. So we're going to see a parallel between how Ben Solo conducts himself within the world and how a young Han Solo chose to conduct himself within the world. I'm curious to see how a young Han Solo handles emotions. How is he going to deal with triumph? How is he going to deal with disappointment? How is he going to deal with betrayal? Because remember, the Beckett character talked a lot about how he should not trust anyone and assume that everyone will betray you. And so being brought up with those philosophies, finding an identity in a group of criminals, what does that do to a person? How does that formulate their outlook on life? And what kind of lessons does a person who had that kind of upbringing pass on to their child when they eventually have it? How does Han Solo find meaning in the galaxy? I mean, we know that he does not believe in the Force, but what does he believe in? And how much credit does he personally take for the good things that he does? And how much credit does he take for the bad things that he does? These are very interesting questions, which will be played out in the film. I think most important to the Reylo community and to people that are just excited about the current state of Star Wars is, how does a young Han Solo view love? Now, this brings us back to the Kira thing and the dice. Right now, my big theory is that the Kira character is either going to die or she is going to betray Han. I'm kind of getting this vibe that Han is going to find with her like that familiarity and perhaps like a rekindled childhood love. This is going to be a big thread for Han for feeling good and for feeling like he belongs in the current state that he finds himself in. Now, if she dies or betrays him, I think it's going to be very similar to what happened to James Bond in Casino Royale. James Bond is a figure known as sort of a womanizer and known for being cut off emotionally from women. I mean, he's just like a man's kind of guy, doesn't really love, is totally engaged in mindless, meaningless sex. But in Casino Royale, we get to see how that paradigm is formed. James actually falls deeply in love with someone who both betrays him and dies. This breaks him fundamentally and formulates the paradigm of behavior that we come to know the character for. I think we're going to get that exact same thing happening for Han Solo. And that framework and that brokenness will be passed on to his son. In a lot of ways, Star Wars is really about family. I mean, that's the reality of this kind of cyclical Shakespearean storytelling. And I'm sure you personally can look within your own behavior and see certain qualities that you have that you think you get from your father or from your mother. And so for fans of the Ben Solo character, for people wanting him to get past his shortcomings and realize the good person that he could be, it is going to be very interesting to see how a younger Han Solo does that same thing. I mean, I can imagine Han sitting young Ben down and sharing the story of what happened to him with Kira and attempting to pass on some wisdom to his son. That story could formulate the worldview that Ben Solo has, especially with regards to love and other women. That worldview likely informs the way that the now Kylo Ren views his feelings for Rey. So you see the cycle, you see why this is going to be so interesting to people that do love Reylo. So I'm definitely keeping an eye out for that. Let me know in the comments section, what other things are you really interested in seeing in the Han Solo movie? Is there something you're not looking forward to seeing? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comment section below. All right, let's check that nerd card really quickly. Another part of the movie that I'm really looking forward to is Tandy Newton. I'm a big fan of her, especially on Westworld, but for the nerd card question, I want to know, what is the name of the character that Tandy Newton is playing in the Solo movie? Answer that question in the comments section below. You can click below to watch more dope videos. You can click our icon to subscribe to get future content. As I always say, I hope you're having an awesome and nerdy day, and I will see you in the next video.